What's up, everybody? Hope you had a great weekend with the beautiful weather all over. It felt like everyone out and about on boats doing their thing, watching some hockey. This is Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet on Betway. Please play responsibly. And remember, you must be 19 years of age or older. That's Colby Cohen. I'm Jonny Lazarus. We got Tyler Yaremchuk joining here shortly off the hop. He was in the house for game one in Florida right now, taking it all in. There's nobody better we could have on to give us the pulse of the Edmonton Oilers. But before we do bring Tyler on, Colby, I want to hear about you. How was your weekend? What's going on?
It was good, man. Good weather. It's always nice when the weather's good. Spend some time with the family at the beach. Little one seems to really enjoy the ocean, even when it's 17 degrees below zero, or so it feels like. So. Good weekend, man. It's hard. Mondays are tough in the summer because you just don't want them to come. But it will be nice to have a game on tonight. It will, and we'll get to that game later. We'll talk about tonight's game a little bit later in the show. But we did want to start today's show by kind of going back and looking at game one of the series. Because I think it's a little bit of a temperature check. I think it's a little bit of a feeling out game for a long series. And then there's been some other news around the NHL that we're going to address and we're going to talk about. So it should be a smooth show today. We should be able to cruise through it.
Yeah, should be nice. And before we do bring on Tyler, who is an Edmonton Oilers fan, I just want to say, I feel like Oilers fans should feel pretty good. I know the outcome isn't what they wanted, but as far as matching up against the Panthers and everything that you would have been concerned about, I thought the Oilers, for the most part, were the more dominant team throughout the game. But should we bring Tyler on and hear from him?
Yeah, let's bring Tyler on. He's got other shows to do today. We know he's the face of Oilers Nation, so we got to move him along. How's sunny Florida this morning, Tyler? You getting some good weather?
I see some color, in the face.
I saw you were out on a boat yesterday with Captain Frank.
Yeah, Frank was nice enough to bring us out on a boat he rented with his family. So we were out on the water for a good chunk of the day yesterday. Drove to Miami, did Oilers Nation every day from a studio in Miami. So getting to experience all the different parts of Florida here. It's my second time down here, but really the first time I've had kind of a day off to go explore. So it was fun.
That's unreal. Did you hit the elbow room too?
Yeah, I've been there every night. Sometimes like last night, it was just like, should we go for it? And then we'd go for one, and we're disciplined. It's the Stanley Cup Finals. You got to stay down. So we truly did only go for one.
I really take for granted how easy it is for us to just go down to Florida. Like in the dead of winter. My mom lives in Boca, so which is about 45 minutes from where you guys are in Fort Lauderdale. And I just, you jump on a plane, it's 2.5 hour direct flight down there, and the weather is nice year round. So I take that for granted. So I'm happy that you guys, and I saw Liam as well, your wingmate from Oilers Nation, like you guys are enjoying it and making
Liam's Mr. Miami
of Florida. He does look, with that stash, he literally does look like Mr. Miami. You should probably leave him in Miami and just let him start, Panthers Nation or something like that in Miami. So
is he next to you?
It's good. It's good to see that you guys are enjoying it and making the most of it. Because, like I said, I think as Americans, we take it for granted. You live way north. You might as well live in Alaska sometimes, right? So
come on. You talked about how easy it would be for you to get down there. How about this for a travel day tomorrow? Flight leaves Fort Lauderdale at 11. And again, this is the only flight path we could get because we kind of booked late. But flight leaves at 11. We fly to LaGuardia. We sit in LaGuardia for 5 hours. We fly to Toronto, sit in Toronto for another 5 hours, and then fly home.
That is pain that I don't wish on someone that I don't like, let alone someone like you. So we'll say a prayer for you tomorrow morning on the show. We will also hope that you have an opportunity to be taking happy travel tomorrow. That will be the hope for us, for you. And look, Jonny was saying it before the show started, Tyler. That game one, I know it was a couple of days ago, it feels like. So we're probably mostly thinking game two here, but we haven't had a show and we want to kind of get your pulse. Like, do you walk away from game one and do you feel like we're okay here? Because honestly, they were the better team. Or my concern for the Edmonton Oilers is that they threw a big punch in game one and they still came up on the wrong side of it. That to me is kind of concerning.
Yeah, so just like being down here talking to a handful of different media members and some Oilers fans and whatnot, it kind of feels like everyone, whether you pick the Panthers or the Oilers, you're coming away from game one being like, oh, I'm actually still confident in my prediction. Because I think if you're a Caps fan right now, you're heading into game two going, whew, we brought what, our C plus B minus game maybe against the Oilers, and we won 3-0. Like the game we played bad, our goalie bailed us out. That's perfect. That's a great way to start this series. And if you're the Oilers, you're thinking, hey, what are the odds we're really going to get goal leads 3 more consecutive times or something like that, right? Like, I think you just kind of have to believe that you played good enough to win, and eventually the pucks are going to start to fall for you a little bit. But as good as Bob did play, there were a couple of moments in that game where, I mean, the Oilers missed their opportunities right before that game went to 2-0. That miss by Zach Hyman in front. I mean, we've seen Zach Hyman, including the playoffs now, score 60 goals from basically right in that spot, and he flips the backhand over the net. We've saw Ryan Nugent-Hopkins miss on an open net on the power play. So they had really good looks that they missed on, and Bobrovsky played about as good as he can, and it was still only 2-0 with a couple of minutes to go. Like, I don't know. I think you can draw enough positives out of that if you're an Oilers fan to still have a lot of confidence that they're going to win this series.
And you could sense the nerves right away, right? Like Hyman gets that puck like 10 seconds in right in front and just lets it go right away. Like he probably had more
almost
time
a
than
gift from Bob, almost a total gift.
But the nerves on both sides, right? Like Bob coughs that puck up, then Hyman just literally doesn't take a second. He just gets it off his stick as soon as he could. But Tyler, there was a trend that seemed to be going on in this game where Edmonton, every time they shot the puck, they were shooting low on Bob. I don't know if that was a game plan going in. I'm sure that's something you picked up on as well. Are you thinking they're going to watch film, yesterday, today, and now look to shoot a little bit higher on Sergei Bobrovsky? I heard it might have been the NHL Network guys, or maybe even Wayne Gretzky, like next period come in and try to go high blocker.
Gretzky. It was Gretzky who said that. He said that on Sportsnet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Tyler, what did you make of that?
Yeah, it was really confusing and I was talking to Carter Hutton yesterday on my show, and he kind of said the same thing. He's like, the book on Bob has always been that laterally he's so good and you're not going to get him low, which the chance that really pissed me off was the Nugent Hopkins breakaway where he flips it backhand and tries to go low. And I don't know if maybe he just missed on the shot or whatever, but like we've seen Ryan Nugent Hopkins score hundreds of goals as an Oiler, coming in on a breakaway and snapping it high blocker, just under the blocker even, but getting some air on it. And they just weren't doing that. It was weird. That's why, again, like, yes, Bob was excellent. Like, I don't want this to sound like I'm trying to take anything away from what Sergei Bobrovsky did in that game, but like, I think the Oilers can do a way better job trying to finish off some of these chances. Like going through those replays you guys just threw up from ESPN, like even the Adam Henrique one, like again, man, just shoot it on him. And instead they're trying these moves. And it's like by that point when Henrique got his breakaway, Bob had already made a handful of saves down low. So it was a little frustrating to see that approach from the Oilers. But again, like they're not stupid. They're one of the best offenses in the league. Like I'd certainly hope they're going to adjust.
Well, what was so, obvious to me was the pace of the game. And that's been one of the things other teams have struggled against with the Florida Panthers in the playoffs is not even the Rangers, and the Rangers can skate. I mean, they have plenty of guys that can move. They don't have the individual speed of the Edmonton Oilers, but I think the New York Rangers for the most part of the season played with a lot of pace, and then they run into Florida, and Florida just finds a way to kill all their pace in the neutral zone, right? Florida does a lot of their damage defensively with good gaps and, shutting things down in the neutral zone, which doesn't let you play with pace. You end up dumping pucks, guys are waiting around. Edmonton didn't have a problem with that. And Edmonton was able to use their team speed. They were able to play north. And for the most part, so was Florida. They were able to continue to play with good pace. But, again, the Edmonton Oilers pace and individual speed was highly on display. And in my opinion, they played almost 2 perfect periods. They really did. I think the third period, Florida settled into that meat grinder, run it 5 yards, go 3 and out, punt it into good field position like they know how to do. But they did make 2 mistakes, Tyler. And both of the mistakes came with that, Nurse Ceci pairing on the ice. And on the first goal, I felt like the Edmonton Oiler forecheck gets caught 3 guys below the top of the circle when Florida's got possession, right? If they have possession, you just can't get 3 caught below the top of the circle. That's the kiss of death. You're going to give up odd man rushes no matter who's on the ice. And on the second goal, you get beat back to a puck. Darnell Nurse gets caught a little bit sleepy. And I texted Frank, and I might have texted you and BM right away too. And I'm like, these guys, even if they have a good game, they can't take 2 shifts off against Florida. That Florida will feast on those types of mistakes. So what do you think Knoblauch does as far as the back end? Do you think he changes it up a little bit? Does he go status quo? Because again, they didn't have a bad game. They almost just had two shifts or really one really sleepy shift. But in the Stanley Cup Finals, Tyler, that's the difference between a win and a loss.
Yeah, and the margins are razor thin. And hey, if Sergei Bobrovsky doesn't play the way he does and the Oilers bury some of those chances, we're probably not even sitting here talking about those two defensive breakdowns.
We are, because that's the reality. That's what happened,
Yeah, I know. And that's where
don't do hypotheticals with Colby, Tyler.
Yeah. We have to have seen the end of Nurse and Ceci, right? Like, it's every series they go back to it at some point, and every series it blows up in their face. Like, I think I've done it on this show, but it's the old analogy when the waiter brings the hot plate, right? It's like, don't touch it. And you're like, I'm gonna touch it.
You
like,
have done that on the show.
Yeah,
it's
like Chris Knoblauch keeps wanting to touch it. Like, they broke up Nurse and Ceci against Dallas and immediately played like the 3 best games of the playoffs. Game 1, they go back to it, and they immediately give up 2 goals. And that second one was brutal by both of them. Darnell Nurse needs to have his stick on the ice, and Cody Ceci needs to have like a little bit of urgency or a little bit of want to play physical hockey down low, which he should be doing. He's a pretty big dude. He's just so soft. Like, it's got to be the end. I don't know what the solution is, because apparently Brett Kulak really doesn't like playing on his offside. But one thing we did see in game 1, Philip Broberg played almost more than any other Oilers defenseman in that game at 5-on-5. He was one of the highest players on the whole team in terms of 5-on-5 time on ice. He is comfortable playing his offside. When they had him down in Bakersfield this year, they had him on the right side playing 20 minutes a game a lot of nights. I think maybe they're going to be willing to go Broberg with Nurse and then Ceci Kulak as a third pairing. So they got to do something.
Could Desharnais draw back in? I mean, it's hard to imagine a world where he played almost every game all season. He gets pulled in the last series, and then we never see him again.
Yeah, but you just talked about how the Oilers' pace is kind of what allowed them to be successful, and Broberg's going to give you more pace than Desharnais. I would take Ceci out for Desharnais, but they're not going to do that.
Maybe that's what you got to do. I mean, you can't be worried about contracts and how much guys make this time. If you got a guy who's not pulling his weight this time of year, there's no tomorrow, basically.
Yeah, and listen, I agree with you, but Chris, if he would have been willing to take out Cody Ceci, there would have been 20 games in the regular season and a handful in these playoffs where it would have already made sense to pull out Cody Ceci at one point. But for whatever reason, they find value in putting him in the lineup. I'm perplexed by it. I would love to see that change tonight in game 2. I'm kind of done holding my breath, waiting for it.
Did Bouchard play more than normal? I saw he had 27 minutes. Is that typical for him, or is that just chasing the game? They're chasing the game.
Yeah, it's relatively typical. The one thing I'd add, they did start to gave him some shifts with Philip Broberg as well. But one thing that kind of skewed that a little bit is they had some power plays, right? And when they have power plays and it's Bouchard playing the whole 2 minutes like he did on each of them, that right there I think was 6 or 8 of his minutes last game. So the one downside on those power plays, they keep the top unit out all 2 minutes. Like, the Oilers don't have a second unit. It actually really hurt Matthias Ekholm's time on ice, which is something to maybe consider when you're building up the pairings a little bit, is the fact that because again Bush plays the whole 2 minutes, he then needs like 3 minutes of game time off before you can go back to him, and that means Ekholm sitting on the bench for the power play. You got to get him on the ice more. Ekholm, and here's the thing. Ekholm could probably come on with 10, 15 seconds left of the power play. If a puck gets shot down with under 30 seconds on a power play, there's no reason Ekholm can't get out there for the last 15 seconds and then play a minute shift just to bridge the gap of not having Bouchard or Ekholm on the ice. Because in an ideal world, one of them's always on the ice. In an ideal world, obviously, they're not each going to play 30 minutes. But Tyler, there was a couple of physical plays in this game.
that, were being talked about. There were a couple of run-ins between Tkachuk and Kane. Kane got Tkachuk pretty good going back to the bench. I thought that was again, to me, I love that in the Stanley Cup final. I was saying this to someone the other day. I want to see big saves. I want to see goals. I want to see hatred, physicality. There was some hatred in this game at times. The play that I want to ask you about was the Bennett confrontation with Connor McDavid, the one that led to McDavid having to wear that bandage on his chin for the rest of the game. People have been freaking out about it on social media. Larry Brooks was tweeting up a storm about this. Here's the video of it, courtesy of our friends at ESPN. Now, I just want to say this to you, Tyler. To me, this looked like a collision, and that's it. A collision where two guys ran into each other. And at the last second, when a 200-plus pound man is going to run into you, your natural instincts is to protect yourself, right? But online, people are saying Bennett, cheap shot, Bennett, rabbit punch, Bennett, sucker punch. You are an Oilers fan at your core, but you're also a hockey fan. When you see that, are you upset and bothered by that? Or are you like, this is the playoffs, shit happens?
I just don't understand how there's not a case to give him at least a 2 or 3 game suspension. I'm kidding. I saw people freaking out about it.
Such a straight face. I was like, holy shit.
But both can be true, right?
Yeah, I saw people freaking out about it online after. And when I was reading through Twitter on our ride home, I was literally like, what play are they talking about? It happened and it didn't register with me in the moment that was a problematic play. I was like, I feel like that happens again in a Stanley Cup final game. That happens 20 times. Yeah, it's just McDavid. It's nothing more than that, honestly. So I don't know. Maybe the Oilers want to use it as some kind of bulletin board material and they want to go after him a bit. I saw Kane got a real good shot in, almost similarly to Bennett, where he did the sort of rabbit punch thing.
He
back
did
to him.
get him good.
Yeah.
I loved that. I was like,
same.
this is great. This is just going to get worse and worse.
Well, and that's, again, what kind of bothered me about some of the pre-series coverage on the national level from some of the big networks was everyone kept talking about how are the Oilers going to handle this big, mean Florida Panthers team? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, they're going to get under their skin. The Oilers aren't that soft. Connor McDavid's not afraid to go in and stick up for his teammates. Leon Draisaitl actually loves it to the point where I think they tell him to calm down a little bit because he loves giving guys whacks and shots behind the play. Evander Kane, Darnell Nurse, they have guys who can be pricks. And
even you told us Holloway too. I think you told us about.
Yeah, he laid a big hit last game.
Tyler, I think part of it is just that they haven't had to do that. And Florida's been doing it in every series. So I think that people are probably going to wake up to the team toughness element of the Edmonton Oilers because, look, I don't think a lot of people get to watch or do really watch the Oilers enough during the regular season because our national networks do not do a good job in the United States of putting the Edmonton Oilers in a place to be seen by the East Coast audience. So I think that people think of them, they think of goals and power plays. They do not realize that there's a good amount of team toughness on that team. Now, nobody is more of a group of bullies than Florida. That I do agree with. They are a group of hard-nosed bullies the way that they play. But, Edmonton's, they're not afraid to stick their nose in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, coming in the series, everyone's like, how are the Oilers going to handle this big, scary Panthers team? But what are we coming away from game one with? Even though the Panthers won, we're sitting here going, whoa, the Oilers pushed the pace of that hockey game. And I just didn't understand. It's easier to adjust to the toughness side of it because that's something you could just bring out of yourself than it is to adjust to the pace. If the Oilers are faster than you and they're going to create chances quicker than you and they're going to make you, throw fits trying to get pucks out of your zone, that's going to be way harder to adjust to. So again, it's 1-0. The realistic goal for the Oilers going down to Florida is to get the split. So tonight is, a pressure-packed game. They all are to an extent, but they still have an opportunity to go out and get the split. And if they get the split, we're coming out of it going, the Oilers were the better team for 2 straight games, and they're coming home with a lot of momentum.
Plus, you're flying back, feeling good, right? Yeah, that's.
But you're gonna get a better game. Florida didn't have an A game, and look, when a team doesn't play well, you can look at it and you say, look, we played very well, and we were part of the reason they didn't play well, and we didn't. And then there's another part of it where, look, Florida did not. you're going to get more from them. There's no doubt. I mean, you're going to get more from the Florida Panthers in game 2. I don't think they're going to come out. To me, Florida looked very nervous. Like they looked like a nervous team through the first period of that game. And then they sort of gradually got into it, Tyler, as that game went along. So before
Colby, I got to ask Tyler one more before we let him go.
Go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead, Jonny.
Do you have a minute, Tyler?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is something that we were talking about prior to the show, and similar to what the United States gets out of Edmonton, I'm sure you guys don't watch a ton of Florida, during the regular season. And you talk about Barkov and how good he is as a player, and then it's a little bit magnified when your team is actually playing against him. You get to see all the little things he does more. I didn't think he played his best game in game 1, but he still was incredibly effective. I just want to get your perspective on now. You're watching a guy who is becoming nationally talked about for how great he is all over the ice. Wayne Gretzky said he's the best player he's seen since Brian Trottier. Anything you noticed? Defensive forward.
Defensive forward, yeah.
Excuse me, thank you. Anything you noticed in game 1 just about Barkov's game, and is there something to be nervous about going forward?
I think when you just hear like big, strong defensive center, you don't associate him with speed all that quickly. But such a big part of having to defend in today's NHL is being quick. Like, never mind just straight line speed, which I was actually surprised how quick he was able to pull away on that Panthers first goal. Like, that was McDavid on with him, and Barkov just boom, hit the burners and went. But I think just the quickness and the pace he plays with, like, that is something that in today's NHL, and when you look at his track record now, even just in these playoffs, of like shutting down the other team's best players, his stick's always in a great spot. He's always in the right position on the ice, but that's because he's quick and he gets to those areas without basically really having to think, right? So just the fact that he's able to move as quick as he is for a big man, and then when you get to the one-on-one puck battles, he's never going to lose them, right? So he's got that unique combination, man, of speed, size, and just the smarts to be able to always be in the right spot to make those plays.
He's a freak.
All right, Tyler, look, I know you got to get to the DFO rundown. Obviously, that's one of the many places you can catch Tyler. Today at noon, DFO Live, Tyler and Frank, DFO YouTube page, Oilers Nation YouTube page. They're basically 24/7 content. These guys never stop working. Go do your other show, Tyler. We appreciate you jumping on with us.
And great stuff on Media Day too, by the way, Tyler. I loved seeing all the clips. That was awesome.
Yeah,
appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
And enjoy game 2. Keep Liam as behaved as you possibly can in Florida, and I'll keep your seat warm on DFO Live tomorrow. I'll see you Wednesday. All right, buddy?
See you, boys.
Thanks, Tyler.
Right.
That was great.
Yeah, look, it's just great to get his perspective on it as an Oilers guy, obviously.
I'm also pumped for him just like individually too. It seems like he's having the best time, like being able to cover his favorite team. They do such a good job over there. And it's cool that they're like boots on the ground,
These guys are these guys have been with this team and following this team, and they started Oilers Nation as just a couple of guys with an idea, and they turned it into this massive company that has so many properties and has been purchased a few different times by private equity companies, and this started as Oilers fans talking hockey, and whether it was Jay and BM and then Tyler so it is great to see these guys sort of in their glory of getting to watch their team in the Stanley Cup Finals. And I think it's good for, I say this all the time, like Connor McDavid on the national stage like this is good for the game of hockey. Hopefully you get more out of him. Not that he didn't play well, but you want to see him have those wow moments where, it's going to run all over SportsCenter for the next 2 days until the next game, and all over the highlight reels and social media and Twitter and this and that. So I guess one of the biggest questions that, we're going to find out, I think tonight, is what happens when Florida goes to another gear like they did in the third period. I thought they went to another gear, and
I actually saw Jeremiah just say that was the worst performance he saw out of Florida in the playoffs.
Well, and again, I just think that also, look, Florida has beaten some good teams to get here, right? Yeah. They've played against Kucherov in the first round and all the Tampa Bay ensemble. And then, it's Pasta and his group. And then it's, and I know Panarin didn't have a good showing, but then it's Panarin and his group, right? So, but I do believe this is the fastest team that the Florida Panthers have seen. And look, I just go back to my first time, 2 experiences of covering and doing Edmonton Oilers games as a broadcaster. First time was in Edmonton, doing a game, Oilers against the Blackhawks, right? And the press box in the Edmonton arena is so far away from the ice. I mean, literally, play-by-play guys sometimes have to use binoculars in that building. Now, the home team gets a much more preferred spot down on the concourse, but away does not, right? So, but even from that far back, I was like, holy shit, this team in person is faster than all the other teams that you watch play in the NHL. And then later in the season, I'm between the benches for a game at the United Center, and I'm watching it at ice level, and I'm like, holy shit, and it's just a different kind of speed. The Florida Panthers have team speed and pace like nobody else. Edmonton has more individualized speed, right? McDavid, and you can go down the list. Draisaitl can skate. Cloud can fly. Even Holloway can skate.
Yeah.
I mean,
Holloway's a great skater.
I thought Fogle was a little quiet, and I didn't think that he was very effective in that game. But look, I think that we're going to kind of find out more about this series tonight, because I think the nerves have calmed. I do think there's more pressure on Edmonton tonight, because if you walk away from this home, these games in Florida down 0-2, I think Edmonton's in a lot of trouble. I think it's going to be very difficult to come back from 2-0. But I do think that tonight's game, I think, becomes more of a, we're going to know what this series is going to look like, because I felt like a lot of game one, again, the first two periods, Florida was kind of stuck. And then in the third period, all of a sudden the gears started turning, and then Edmonton all of a sudden was back on their heels a little bit. And they were finding themselves, giving up a little more chances. Look, I thought Stuart Skinner played well. I don't blame him.
He wasn't tested all that much.
But I agree, but I don't blame him for either goal. But the difference of the game is that Bob makes a bunch of saves that he probably shouldn't, and Stuart Skinner gives up 2 goals. Neither are his fault, but he didn't come up with one of those. Right? If you come up with one of those 2, then it's a 1-0 game late, and things change a little bit based on, the pressure that you're going to see and feel. So I think tonight is big time, as far as how this series is going to shake out.
Yeah. I mean, Colby, I know you don't really care so much about these kind of stats, but from Sergei Bobrovsky's perspective, or from his end, he had a plus 5.61 goals saved above expected.
So do me a favor.
Yeah.
Explain what that means to everybody watching.
Okay, so a goal saved above expected essentially is what you just alluded to, a goalie saving a puck that he probably shouldn't have. And I believe the Oilers had, let me just double check. The Oilers had like 5.61 goals expected, and the Panthers had like 1 point something. It was 5.61. And Florida had 1.88.
My question for you is who decides what should, who makes that decision? A computer?
This is Money Puck. Yeah, I checked Money Puck for that. But that essentially says the Oilers should have had 5 goals.
Because that's always my beef with some of those things, Johnny, is that who is making the decision of what's a shot that he shouldn't save that he does? Like, who makes that decision? I assume it's an algorithm, but how does the algorithm know, right? Who programmed that algorithm to know what should or shouldn't happen?
That's not a question for me, that's for sure.
I actually kind of wish Singsy was in the chat today, because he's like a big data and analytics guy. And we were kind of going back and forth about it yesterday, because the whole cap friendly thing came up. And then he was tweeting that you're buying the data and the analytics. You're not necessarily buying, you don't care. The Washington Capitals can look in the database to see what all the registered there's a centralized database that they can look at. So it's not like they need cap friendly because they want to see what guys' contracts are. They already have access to that. It's all about data, right? And systems and this and that.
Vic is also saying that it's just a percentage thing, shot location off a pass or whatever, and how often they go in.
But not all shots are created equal from the same spot. And that's where I always say, analytics are good, and you can use them as one slice of a large pizza, but there's 8 other slices or 7 other slices, and data and analytics are just one slice.
Well, here's the flaw with it as well. If Connor McDavid and Darnell Nurse both get a breakaway and Bobrovsky saves it, it's probably counting as a goal saved above expected, but those are 2 different things in reality.
Right.
but it counts as the same.
Exactly.
So those are some of the flaws in it. But I mean, just looking at numbers though, like Bobrovsky putting on that kind of performance, typically if a goalie has a great game, they're probably at like a +3 goal save above expected, but being north of 5 is pretty darn good. So I just wanted to put that out there for the people that do care about analytics, because it does tell some sort of story that Bobrovsky really did stand on his head in that game.
Listen, but let me just ask you this question. Yeah. When has he not been phenomenal in the playoffs? Like, he's gotten overshadowed by the goalies that he's played against.
There's one game I can think of.
Overshadowed by Shesterkin. Okay. And he got but you know what? He keeps winning. Yeah. And he keeps making the breakaway save in the third period to keep the game at 1 or to keep the game at 2. At what point are we just going to say, wow, like, Bob could win the series? I mean, going into the series, we all said advantage Florida in goal.
Yeah, for sure.
So why are we that surprised that this guy who has played at a pretty ridiculous level?
I don't think anyone's surprised.
But I think all we ever do, and I'm guilty of this too, like I do this too, I basically say the Panthers are so good, they make Bob look better. Mm-hmm. They weren't so good in game 1. They weren't. And Bob made them, Bob won them the game. Edmonton got quote unquote goalied, right?
They did. I don't think it's quote unquote. I think they did.
But I'm just saying, I'm using the phrase it's a goofy phrase. You know what I mean? So, but what's to say he's not going to do that? Like, this is the highest paid goaltender in the NHL. This is a guy who's been really good. John Tortorella called him the most focused athlete he ever had. I mean, that's pretty crazy when you think about how long John Tortorella has been in the NHL and how, he picks and chooses his words pretty wisely. So, look, I think that I would be feeling a little bit concerned if you're an Edmonton Oiler fan. I'm not looking at it as glass half full, as a lot of Oiler fans are. Because I'm concerned that you kind of threw a lot of your best and it did not come up with the results that you would be looking for.
If we're kind of comparing to like a previous series or whatever, I thought that was kind of what happened with the Rangers. They threw everything they had in game 5 and came up short, and that was the series. But with Florida, with Edmonton, there was that one point in the game they have that goal called off, which, I don't think anyone was arguing that, who is it, Brown, that ended up pushing the pad in with the puck. Had that goal stood, I was like, oh, Edmonton's got this. They just needed to see one go in, and I think maybe it would have changed things. But the Oilers have been this weird team where, there's been a couple times in these playoffs where I'm like, oh man, like I'm concerned about Edmonton, and then you start to kind of count them out. And they've responded every time. It happened in the Dallas series, undoubtedly, the Vancouver series,
undoubtedly.
Yeah. So
this is a different animal. This is the most complete team Edmonton has played, and it's probably the most complete team Florida has played as far as what they can do and how they can hurt you. I just think with Florida, they're like an amphibian that can change colors depending on the environment they're in. They just understand different ways to win hockey games. And I thought the third period was a really good, example of how they can sort of change the way that they're playing when they're not feeling it. Their legs are, not fully there. And they can sort of find a way to squeeze out a win. So look, game 2 tonight. We're going to finish with talking about game 2. So, before we go into game 2, Johnny, a couple of things I want to talk about quickly that are sort of prevalent in the hockey world. And hopefully the chat will weigh in on this a little bit. And let's start with the Cap Friendly website, being bought by the Washington Capitals, and how disappointed I think most hockey fans are. Personally, love Cap Friendly. Good for those guys. When you build a product, your end goal is for someone to come in and give you a shit ton of money for it. And my assumption is that the Washington Capitals gave a lot of money for the website. And I don't, like I said earlier, I don't think the Capitals are interested in the number of the contracts that players have. I think they want the site's infrastructure and the data and the sort of the technology systems of
well, it's also seeing how trades work and everything, right? And all that stuff.
I think that this was a purchase for the technology systems and the code that are built into the cap friendly system. And I know that teams have all done different things to work on these, buy these. Look, the guy who's co-founded Cap Friendly, the guy Dominic Zarim, he worked for the Blackhawks. While I was actually there, he was working for the Blackhawks. He was their cap guy. He also had a stint working for Mike Greer and the San Jose Sharks. So this is a guy who is in demand. I wonder if part of the deal, when we hear the terms, will be for his services, for that guy Dominic Zarim's services to go to the Washington Capitals as well. But I will say hockey fans definitely took a kick in the balls with this, because me personally, I use Cap Friendly to look at things every day for this show, for DFO Live, for all the others. So kind of a bummer. People were tweeting about Puckpedia yesterday. Saying,
I'm looking at that site right now, actually.
And I think we're hoping that site will kind of build up and kind of become that, because I think this is an important tool for everybody to have and to be able to use in the hockey market. So Jonny, before I kick it over to you to make any comments about it, if you want to, do us a favor. If you're on the episode, you're listening, you're watching right now live, throw us a like on the episode if you're enjoying it. If you're not enjoying it, definitely don't throw us a thumbs down. You can just leave. I'm kidding. But you guys have been really, really good with that stuff the last couple of weeks, and it's really helped with the growth of our show. So if you have a second, you're in the chat, throw us a like. If you're not subscribed to the Daily Faceoff YouTube page, or maybe you're only subscribed to Oilers Nation, throw a subscribe on the DFO YouTube page. We've got shows going all day, especially right now. DFO Live comes up at noon. DFO Rundown, frankly speaking. It kind of goes on and on. Prospect stuff with Stephen Ellis. The draft is like 3 weeks away, right? So that's kicking up. Fantasy stuff with other guys like Larkin. So there's a lot of content coming off the page right now. And we'll be talking about our next season and summer plans throughout the next couple of weeks on there. So like, subscribe. I know I'm like a broken record with that, but it is super important. So I just wanted to remind you guys, Jonny.
Yeah, and with the Cap Friendly thing, I was just looking at Puckpedia myself, and it's not a site I'm super familiar with, but whenever these things happens, I feel like there is something always that comes up and is the next wave, right? So for all the people that are disappointed, I don't think we'll be without this tool forever. If anything, we'll just have to adjust and find a different way to get the information that you do seek on Cap Friendly.
We have a couple comments in the chat. Yeah. Jeremiah said, we haven't heard if Washington is taking it offline. Have we? And then, let's see. I think I saw Mike Torrance. He said, oh no, Weinberg said, does this mean the site is not going to be a thing anymore? Well, look, I can't imagine they bought it to leave it as a public tool for people to look at. I mean, maybe, but that's just not how it read to me. And that would be very surprising to me if they kept it in its form, because they're constantly having to update it every day, and they're constantly working on the coding and this and that. So I don't know why Washington would have paid a boatload of money just to make it a free service for everybody else. That would be really surprising to me.
Yeah, doesn't really make much sense for that to be the case. I don't really have much else to say on that, but Colby,
well, I know. Look, I think that rolls us right into the fact that the cap is going to now go up $4.5 million.
I was just about to do that, and then you just took it.
Well, now I did it. So cap went up to 88 million. It's a couple 100,000 more than the prediction. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that being is league revenues are up and the league is healthy. There was a report from the NHL that the players are getting their entire 6% escrow back. I think Frank reported that. And I think it's important people understand this. And I'm sure most of the adults here understand what escrow is. Jonny, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I actually don't fully understand it.
So the way escrow works here, Jonny, in any situation, right? Like, let's say you get an apartment and you have first, last, and security, right? They take your security deposit, they put it in an escrow account. It's not an account for them to just use your money. It's actually a sort of like a little investment account, and the money sits there and then it can go back to you. Escrow in an NHL contract means they hold a certain percentage, 6% of your money on every one of your paychecks. It goes into like a centralized account, an investment account, actually, because it earns interest
of each paycheck.
Of each paycheck, but which means of your will be your overall salary, right?
Yeah, it adds up.
And the way the hockey related revenue is 50-50, right? So there's a formula. They think projected revenue is X. The formula runs itself. That's how they come up with a salary cap. Johnny, the salary cap is just half of what hockey related revenue is projected to be to the players, and the other half of the money goes to the owners. Now, if they project $4 billion and they're holding 6% of your paycheck and the salary cap is $80 million, let's say they do $4.3 billion. Well, they exceeded that, which means the owners got more money, right? Or even money, where in this situation, the league made more than they projected. The players get 6%. All their escrow money comes back to them. The 6% that was held in this like centralized location. And Frank also reported that the players are actually going to get even more than 6% back, because again, if the league projected, and I'm making round numbers up, $1 billion and they did $1.2 billion, well, that extra $0.2 billion then gets split amongst the players to continue to make the revenue split between the players and the owners 50-50. Like the salary cap is just the revenue share part of the NHL. That's the 50% that go to the players, the salary, right? So I know that I'm explaining it in high level form, and hopefully I'm being clear. And if I'm not being clear, throw it in the chat that I'm speaking in a totally different language. But that is how hockey related revenue and this 50-50 partnership with the owners works. Is the salary cap, and the numbers are projections based on league revenues based on a 50-50 split. So the fact that the players are getting all their escrow back plus a bonus plus more money, it shows you that the league is very healthy financially and revenues are very high.
And do you think a part of that has to do with Utah? I know we got a question in the chat about that. I know Utah obviously hasn't.
It isn't. And I'll tell you why. There was no fee for Utah. They did not have to pay a $1 billion expansion fee. Did they? Didn't they just pay? They just paid to buy the team. Like where I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not fully aware of that situation.
Well, so what I'm saying, and Vic can jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, or people in our chat will tell me that I'm wrong because they love to do that. When
I do too, but I don't know about the situation.
When Seattle started or Vegas started, they paid, like, Vegas paid $500 million and Seattle paid like $750 million, right? That fee does not go to the players. That is something that will come up in the next CBA. So where Utah had to pay a $200 million relocation fee, and then they had to buy the team for whatever that number was, they didn't have to pay the next time there's expansion in the NHL, it's going to be a $1 billion expansion fee that is paid to the league, which will get split up between the 32 owners.
Okay.
Or
because
Vegas and Seattle
relocation, it's not a new.
Yeah, Vegas and Seattle probably don't get a piece of that. So to the 30 owners. So Ryan Smith had to pay $200 million to the NHL, and then I think whatever $1 billion or whatever the number was to that crappy owner in Arizona. So that's a little bit different, but that could be part of the reason why. But I think the other reason why is that the league is healthy. Ticket sales are up. TV money is up. Advertising is up. Jersey patches, helmet decals, like all that stuff is creating more money. And having big market teams have good runs in the playoffs, like the Bruins, Edmonton. I know Edmonton's not a big market, but it's Canadian. Look, it's $1,000 to go to a game, standing room in Edmonton right now. So those are all reasons why, Johnny, I think the league is pretty healthy.
No, and that was a great breakdown because I am not so aware of the way the money works with not only the players but also the teams. Like these are important things that happen day to day. And from your experience, you're someone who dealt with contracts, so you know it better than most people. Like I have no idea what goes into signing an NHL contract, negotiating a contract, the money that's
I
given
lived
back
a
to
lockout. I lived a lockout too, Johnny. I was in I want to say it was my third year pro. Was
2013,
was the
right?
last lockout. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I lived that, and we were having meetings with Donald Fair, who was the head of the players union at the time. All guys that were on NHL contracts, whether you're an NHL or an AHL, you're getting the emails, you're being kept in the loop, you're meeting with reps. So I kind of learned a little bit more about the CBA and about hockey related revenue and how, like, I never really realized that the salary cap is just a formula based on projected revenue to give the NHL players 50% of the pie. Obviously, not every player gets an equal portion of it.
Yeah.
But when you add up all the salaries in the NHL, it equals 50% hockey related revenue. That's why, we can't just start saying, oh, like, LTIR is more sticky because you're talking about, again, it's a 50-50 share between players and owners. I think some owners wouldn't care. They'd be willing to go over that, but some wouldn't. Some teams don't make money. Some teams potentially lose money and have to get helped with other teams. It's a revenue share around the NHL. So I learned a little bit more of it living through that 13-14 lockout, whatever that was. It was only
12-13, I think. 12-13.
Half a season. It wasn't, I don't even know if it was a full half a season. I think maybe it was a full half of a season. But they started talking to the players about that my rookie year. Like I remember my first NHL training camp, the last day or two of training camp, and I was still with the big club at the time. That was the first time I met Donald Fair, and he was actually not even voted in yet as president of the Players Association. He was, going and meeting team to team and telling the teams his plan to get the players paid. And, the players gave a lot back in that negotiation. The hockey related revenue went to 50-50. The escrow thing came up. Luckily, there hasn't been a lockout since. And hopefully we're 2 years away from a CBA, which is never a good thing. But, Gary Bettman made a comment the other day that the relationship between the players union and the PA has never been better since Marty Walsh, former politician coming out of Massachusetts. And I have two friends that were on the committee that hired him. And we can actually ask, at some point this summer, Van Riemsdyk and Shattenkirk, because we'll have them on. We'll ask them about that process of hiring Marty Walsh. But, hopefully we're not headed towards another lockout. I don't see a scenario where we are because I just think the league is too healthy, but you really never know.
Yeah, no, great breakdown, Colby. That was awesome. I'm sure a lot of our listeners learned. I learned because, like I said, I don't know much about this stuff. So, always good for me to hear from you. There's one other thing I wanted to bring up, unless you have one more final thought on the salary cap and everything.
No, go ahead.
My throat's getting so dry this morning. I don't know what's going on, but I wanted to shout out the Florida Everblades, 3 straight Kelly Cups in the ECHL. My good friend from UMass, Oliver Chow, won the playoff MVP. And I know Paul Maurice had a really good quote on it after game 1. I believe his son does play-by-play for Florida and has been there for 2 years, and they won those 2 years. So that's pretty cool to see Paul Maurice giving love to the ECHL. Don't know if you have any friends in the league or on any teams, but just wanted to shout out the Florida Everblades. It was pretty cool.
I'm sure I do. I mean, I'm sure, one of my former teammates is actually a coach in that league.
Oh,
now.
really?
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. A lot of my friends are now either coaching or working in the American League, in the NHL. A lot of my former teammates are. So I'd have to look, but yeah, couple in a row. That's pretty big. I saw Josh Hosang highlights.
Yeah.
I mean, man, he looked like he's tearing that league up. Listen, that's a guy who's got NHL caliber talent. Just never was able to fully figure it out, probably in the wrong organization. But, I did see some of those highlights that were, looking pretty good. The other news from the weekend, there was a lot of rumblings about Gensel being available. Look, everybody murdered the Pittsburgh Penguins and Kyle Dubas for that trade, right? It looks pretty good now.
Yeah.
It looks pretty good now because Carolina didn't go any further than they ever do, right? Would they have not gotten to where they were if they didn't have, like, my argument is Gensel had zero effect on their playoff.
They were going to win a round regardless.
That's what I'm saying. And they lose in the second round again. And now he's going to go be a free agent, it looks like. Why wouldn't you? You're this close to free agency. Carolina's never going to overpay.
No.
So why wouldn't you go pick your own team? He's available for a mid-round pick. A lot of rumblings about the Blackhawks. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that want him. So that's a situation we'll keep an eye on. We'll ask Frank about that tomorrow just to see if anybody's biting on that. We will have Frank with us tomorrow on the show. The other interesting thing, with the Gensel and the Blackhawks was Kyle Davidson put the Patrick Kane back to Chicago rumors
I saw that.
which did not surprise me. Like our both of our friend, Barstool Chief, he has been banging that drum. He wants Kane back. Like he keeps that alive pretty well. And I'll always text him and I'll just send him emojis, just giving him shit. He's super passionate about it. Like it's not an act, it is not an act. He lived those glory days. He wants those days back, but it doesn't make sense to have Kane there. And Kane wouldn't want to be in a situation where they're still not going to be a good team next year.
No, but also it kind of makes me think there hasn't been any chatter about Jonathan Toews. Like he never officially retired, right? He said he was just kind of stepping away.
Yeah, but that's coming. Funny enough, I'll see him next month. We'll he's very good friends with Colin Wilson, who's getting married. He's having a wedding next month at Woodstock, which will be pretty cool. Actually, I've never been to Woodstock. Cool. It's like a Woodstock themed wedding too. So
that's unreal.
That'll be pretty cool and pretty unique. But I know Taser will be up there for that wedding. But his career is over. You're not going to see him back in the NHL. I think he just likes to do things on sort of his own time, his own way. I think. I got to know him in Chicago when I was there a little bit. I don't think he probably doesn't get it. Like, I don't think people quite realize how intelligent he is, like just as far as like a human intelligence level. Super well-read, intelligent guy. Like he talking to him, sometimes you'd be like, holy shit, my brain is going to explode. Like you're giving me so much crazy information. And I don't mean crazy, like just like so much. He's a very, very well-read, well-studied, intelligent guy. And I'll look forward to catching up with him next month. But I wouldn't expect any news about Jonathan Toews in that regard.
Just back to Gensel for a quick second. We'll make this like a fun question. Is there a team you'd want to see him go to or maybe where he'd be a good fit?
Yeah, the reason I can't answer that yet is because I got to look at cap friendly. I got to see where he fits. I got to see where his contract would make sense. It's always easy to just say, yeah, he'd look great in Toronto, or he'd look great in New York, or he, put him with a bunch of superstars in a big market. Love to see him in Boston, or you know what I mean? Like, what if he played for Florida? Like, what if Reinhart walks from Florida? Does he fit in Florida because he costs you less than Reinhart? Does Julian Breezewa get creative this summer if they can't work something out with Stamkos? Like who knows, right? You want to see Gensel with superstar players. They're going to give him the puck. We see how good he is when he's with Crosby, right? So, but I'd have to go look at the rosters, Johnny, to really give you a true sense of where I think he could go.
Well, I know we kind of shit on them a lot, but I was thinking, like, what if you threw him up with Horvat and Barzal with the Islanders?
Yeah. I think the Islanders are a way more attractive place to play with Patrick Waugh as the head coach.
Yeah.
Where I think it's not an attractive place to play previously with Lou Lamoriello being in charge, where now I think there's probably more of a balance of power with Patrick Waugh. And I think potentially Patrick Waugh outlives Lamoriello, maybe not. Patrick Waugh also walked away from the Colorado Avalanche and his teammate Joe Sakic like a week into training camp, basically, or a week before training camp. So you never fully know there. But I have seen our guy, Pizza Sports Guy, banging that drum all over social media.
That was a big conversation.
Trying to wish it into existence.
Well, when the Islanders lost, it was, they had Ceci playing on their first line. Like, they need someone.
They never have enough. They don't build, like, they just
and that's
don't
what I'm
have
saying.
enough.
Like, make a splash. Go get Gensel. Like, why not try? It feels like they don't try.
When you're a UFA, you're going to have to overpay him. Is Lou going to overpay him? I don't see why you wouldn't if you're Lou, because you're not going to be there to see the whole contract. So
and
why
I think
not
they're trying to move on from Brock Nelson, right? Like, that's the guy they're trying to move on from.
I never believe rumors out of New York, because Lou does not tell people shit. That is a place that you're never going to get any information out of that organization until it happens. And you remember what Lou Lamoriello said about Horvat: too much money, too many years. So if he does it for Gensel, it's because he's basically saying, not going to be my problem in a year or two.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's built to think that way. He has proven time and time again he's not. So we'll see. Like, I don't have a lot of faith in his decision making. I really don't, and he hasn't given us reason to. And I don't know if we have our resident Isles fan Ariel in the chat today. I haven't seen her in the chat. I know she usually catches up on it.
Though.
She was tweeting at me yesterday about Caitlin Clark, which I liked. We're definitely on the same side of that argument, but which we're not normally on the same side. She probably gets angry at me when I talk about the Isles, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. I think, there's going to be some big names and there's going to be some movement. And I think even guys who are under contract are going to move. Yeah. I think that period between the Cup and free agency is going to be pretty good. And we're going to have a big free agent show on Daily Faceoff's YouTube page. That's going to be like our trade deadline show. It's going to be 4 or 5 hours. We're going to have Frank working the phones. We're going to have, all sorts of different production elements. So that will be pretty good, Johnny.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to finish it off. Like, as a Ranger fan, I'd fucking hate it, but I'd be interested to see Gensel, Barzal, and Horvat as a line. I think that'd be pretty unbelievable just to watch. But let's go into our Perasso playoff preview and talk about Game 2 tonight. So this is presented by Perasso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Perasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Perasso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. Colby, Game 2. Are we doing the must win or no? I don't think it is. I think Edmonton is in fine shape. Going down 2-0 to Florida is a tough hole to climb out of. But with the way the Oilers played, like, I have no concern about Edmonton tonight. I actually, if we're talking about picks, which we'll get into Betway soon, I like Edmonton tonight. I do.
Yeah, I'm not calling this a must win, Johnny, and I'm proud of you because you're evolving. Emotionally, you're evolving. And it's easy for you to not be emotional when the Rangers aren't involved.
But Tyler made a great point, though. Like, you can look at it from Edmonton's side and say, hey, we played a good game. Like, it just didn't go our way. And then in Florida, if you're a Panthers fan, it's like, oh, we didn't even play our best and we were able to win 3-0. Like, I see both sides of this.
Yeah. Look, it's not a must win when you've got McDavid and you've got Draisaitl and you're going back to, probably one of the best one of the best atmospheres and one of the hardest, visiting atmospheres there are. But we've also seen home teams at times look a little tight in the playoffs. But no, not going to call it a must win. What I'm going to say is they need to solve Bob early in this game.
Yeah.
Edmonton needs to score a goal in the first 10 minutes of this game.
Or the frustration will just carry through.
You don't want to get into the situation that Tampa got into, where Tampa, they win that series against Tampa, 4-1?
Yeah.
Did they win 4-1? But those games there were moments in those games where Bob did Bob things. Otherwise, that series is a 7-game series and a coin toss. Right. He makes that behind the back save and this and that. And he makes a couple of those saves on Kucherov and Point and Stammer and Sorelli, even
the one on Dumba, the biggest
breakaway. I mean, so you need to get a goal early if you're the Edmonton Oilers. I think that is the most important thing is getting ahead and being able to play with the lead a little bit, because when you're trying to chase the game like Edmonton did in the third period, that's where Florida can really hurt you. That's where that meat grinder and that sort of war of attrition that that Florida knows how to win, and that heavy board battle type of game where, they play north and they keep coming, and those top pairs of the defense are holding the blue line, and they're making it difficult just to enter the zone. Forsling and Ekblad and Montour. I actually thought Kulikov and Ekman-Larsson had a more difficult time in game one than I've really seen them have in a while. And I think, they're probably going to have to be a little bit more selective about matchups on their back end than I think that they were or had to be. Like, I didn't see I didn't see Maurice or Sylvain Lefebvre, who runs the D for the Florida Panthers, who actually played for in Colorado. He was the D coach there. He didn't look like he was doing any hard matchups. It looked like and I think they probably need to be a little tighter about keeping Kulikov and Ekman-Larsson off the ice against that probably top two lines, I would say, the way the lines were stacked in game one.
I also want to ask a question, and it might be silly, but I'm not trying to come off as silly. Is there any argument to be made about like Sam Bennett being in the running for the Conn Smythe?
No.
You don't think it's possible at all?
I don't.
Just the overall. I mean, he has a crazy impact on the game.
Yeah, but it's just not. It's just not how it works.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like people look at stats. They want goals. They want assists.
I mean, he has 11 hits in game one.
I understand that, but a guy with a lot of hits is not going to win the contest.
But has that big assist too.
It doesn't matter. I mean, McDavid has 31 points in the playoffs. Barkov has how many points in the playoffs?
Like 17 or 18. Yeah.
Exactly. So you're not.
Bennett's got like 11 points.
But that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
You're talking about Connor McDavid has 31 points, Johnny.
Yeah.
So I hope you're hearing us flush this out right now. I'm not saying
I said, like, I'm not trying to be silly, but
I'm not saying the guy's not effective, but I think he's not even close to Bob. I mean,
I'm not saying that I would pick him. I was just curious if if there is any sort of conversation to be had.
Well, if you're not saying that, then it's a dumb question.
Weinberg 85, he gets me. He just said Bennett has vibe points, and vibe points are important.
Yeah, vibe points are not important when they pick the Conn Smythe trophy. So don't do me a favor, Weinberg. Don't egg on Johnny.
There should be a vibe trophy, honestly. We should have a playoff
acting
vibe
like an idiot. You can do us a favor. Why don't you start recording a video every night and putting it on your Twitter? Say something negative about the Islanders, and then tweet your vibe points. Okay, because those seem to get a lot of traction on the internet when you talk about the New York Islanders.
The con vibes. All right. I got nothing really else to preview for game 2 tonight. Do you want to get into Betway?
Yeah, Betway. Still running a great promotion with Betway. Remember, you can get a free $200 bet on your first bet. Scan the QR code on your screen, create a new account. It'll load up your account, give you an opportunity to get out there, bet as much as you want, as little as you want. It's a one-time only opportunity, and they will reimburse you up to $200 if that first bet doesn't hit. We did not hit in game 1. We're sorry about that. Remember to play responsibly. Available only outside of Ontario. What we are going to go with today, we're going to go with the over. Okay, we're going to take the over 5.5 minus 110. All right, neither of these are great, but here's the thing. All right, I don't think the Edmonton Oilers are going to get shut out again in this hockey game. There's just no way they're going to get shut out. Their power play is going to get going. They're going to get opportunities. I think Edmonton is going to score at least 2 or 3 goals tonight. And I think the Florida Panthers are good for at least 2 or 3 goals tonight. So I think we're looking at a score tonight that could be, 4-2 or potentially even 5-3 type of game. I think Edmonton's offense is going to get going. I think special teams are going to get going. And I think the Florida Panthers, as always, they're going to create opportunities. They're going to put pressure on Stuart Skinner. They're going to score at least 2 goals. And I think that makes you feel pretty good. If it's a 3-2 game late, and you get an opportunity at an empty netter, that puts you over. That's 6. So we're going to take the over in this hockey game tonight. we've had a good run in the playoffs. We really have. We've hit more times than we haven't. We're probably batting around 750. If you're looking at our percentage, like I said, we missed game 1. We thought Hyman anytime goal would be a pretty much a slam dunk. And not to say he didn't have plenty of opportunities, Johnny, to score that anytime goal. A couple of times I was on the edge of my seat thinking we hit our bet, and we didn't. So Oilers over. We're taking -110 over Florida Edmonton game 2. 5.5 is the line. I think we'll have no problem with that. Obviously, if we do, we'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll go back to the drawing board, although we do have two days between games because of the travel day back to Edmonton after this one, Johnny. But that's how we're rolling.
Yeah, and I do want to shout out Olivia before we do wrap up today's show. Olivia did mention and make note that tonight is the PWHL draft, which starts at 7 p.m. Eastern time. If there's something to look at before the game, a lot of great women being drafted. So shout out to Olivia. I know she's one of our most.
I want to know why the GM of the team that won got fired.
I do not know the answer to that.
Did you even know that happened? Are you surprised that I know about that?
I didn't know that happened, to be honest. No, I did not.
Well, I know the name Natalie Darwitz. She was a big, she was a well-known USA hockey player. And she was the GM of Minnesota who just won.
Won the PWHL.
She won the league playoff championship. I don't know what the trophy's called. So, but they fired her. And I saw a statement yesterday. I saw DFO had an article up about it, and they fire the woman who won, and she put out a statement yesterday thanking everyone and saying she couldn't speak on the terms of her, which means there's some sort of settlement happening or some sort of oh God, I'm laughing at New York Marine right now.
Yeah, same. I saw that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was laughing at also.
Hey, maybe Caitlin Clark will play in the PWHL. Maybe they'll accept Caitlin Clark in that league. And
Olivia's giving us the info. It's called the Walter Cup. And there was a conflict between the coach and Kendall, Kendall Cohen, Schofield, the captain.
There was a conflict?
I guess so. It's Olivia watches a lot of it. I got to be transparent. I don't watch a lot of the PWHL. But that seems to be the situation, and she's saying it's an odd situation.
Well, but it's an odd situation because, first off, Kendall Coyne cannot have a conflict with anyone. I know Kendall. I was in Chicago with Kendall. We were working for the Blackhawks together. She's possibly one of the nice human beings on the. I cannot imagine a world where she had a conflict with anyone. But they didn't fire the coach; they fired the GM. So maybe the conflict was with the GM. I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong, Olivia. I don't follow the league. I'll be completely honest with you. But I do stand by what I said. Let's get Caitlin Clark a pair of ice skates, and let's get her in the PW, the hockey league. And I'm hoping that those girls would be more accepting than the WNBA has. But we'll take Caitlin Clark in hockey because
we love Caitlin Clark.
The woman brings a shit ton of eyeballs. All right. And I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole right now. Yeah. Like Ariel was tweeting me yesterday saying we should talk about Caitlin Clark on the show. I can't believe we're actually doing it.
Well, I honestly, I've watched more WNBA than I have MLB.
Dude, she's a star. The women's basketball league is a bunch of morons the way that they're treating her. Okay, they're a bunch of assholes and a bunch of morons the way that they're treating her. The U.S. Olympic team, whoever picked that team that didn't put her on it, is so stupid for that. I'm sorry, you're an idiot. All right. How many people aren't going to watch this? This girl just had 30 points the other day. Rookie setting threes records. All right. I'm not going down this rabbit hole. It's too dangerous of a rabbit hole for me.
We love Caitlin Clark, and that's the bottom line.
Thanks for bringing up the PWHL,
the
women's NHL, and the women's national hockey league, and we'll cut it at that, Johnny. So I'll give you the final word, buddy.
Yeah, no, just wanted to shout that out. Also we love our loyal listeners, and Olivia we know is one of them. So definitely want her voice to be heard. But that's gonna wrap it up for today's show. We got 9 a.m. again tomorrow all week. We're here Monday through Thursday. I know everyone's asking about draft week. Also, we're still kind of in the works. We will have shows for draft week. Colby, I don't know if you want to allude to that at all as well, but
yeah, we'll definitely be bringing you guys the draft. We don't know in exactly what regard that will be, but we will have draft coverage. We're We may be in Vegas. We may not. We're sorting that out right now. If we are in Vegas, we'll obviously try to get a bunch of people leading up to it. I think we're both pretty well connected in that space. But we'll keep you guys posted on future plans. We're sorting it all out. We're not going anywhere. We can tell you that much. We're going to have something going on in the summer. It probably won't be live. It'll probably be more about getting guests on and talking to them for an hour, like once a week, something like that. But we will have a big free agency show. We will have draft coverage. Do us a favor. If you haven't liked the show, throw the like, throw the subscribe. We've got Frank Saravalli coming on the show tomorrow. We're going to see about getting maybe try to get John Butchergross for Wednesday. I'll text him and see if he's available to talk Wednesday because there's 2 days between games. You guys make sure you throw stuff in the chat. You guys keep the show going, usually longer than we intend because we start, we start looking at the chat and we start talking about what's going on in the chat. I think we'll keep you all posted. We're not holding back on you. We're just sorting through details and we're sorting through that stuff. But definitely some good potential for what we have going on the rest of the month before we, maybe take 2 weeks off in July and then we change our format to something like 1 day a week. And here's the other thing. If you are somebody who catches the show live some days, but then you go audio, go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts, put us on automatic download so it's there for you guys. We got to get those downloads up. Again,
Vic works hard to get it into podcast form after the show is done.
Within like an hour or so after the show, it's on podcasts, it's on Spotify, it's on, I don't even know what all the platforms are. So get involved in those as well. Get the automatic download going. Have it in there. You're walking the dog. You can throw us on. You can listen to Johnny's stupid takes. You can listen to me get angry about absolutely nothing. You'll probably be laughing at us. You'll probably be MFing us as you're walking your dog in this nice, beautiful, sunny weather. That's all we got for today. Good job in the chat, everyone. You keep us going. You keep the energy of the show up on a Monday where everybody's dragging their asses a little bit. Vic, you were on your shit today. Good work producing the show, although a little light on the production elements, but it's all right. It was a Monday for you too. Johnny, I will see you back here 9 a.m. tomorrow. Like and subscribe. We'll see you all later.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the